Okay, we are live on the Teflon Tales, same time every Wednesday, 5:30 Pacific. With me, I have two guests. This time, actually, this is the first time we've had three guests. I've had one and I've had three guests, so there are two guests today, right? So if I can do my math right. So welcome, LeahMcLean, and welcome, Mary Chaney, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I'm a pleasure to be here.
Same. Yes, I'm very excited because I love Mary and love you, Ashwin.
Yeah, and so we get. I always start off with this, right? And this is like how I met you. So literally, I know, Leah, you and I met definitely less than 2 months ago. And again, social media has pluses and minuses. It's a huge plus, just be able to meet new people. And I think you commented or liked the interview I had with Diana Kelly, and that's how that relationship started. And feel like I've known you forever. I've known Mary less than 3 weeks. Again, somebody made a connection. Let me think. Oh, it was you, Leah. And already we're counting. I mean, I've done a tech cast with you, Mary. I've been on your minorities cybersecurity panel, and then we're doing the Teflon Tales live. So again, I think there's power behind social media if we can use it effectively. So again, thank you both for being on the show. So Mary, I'm going to start off with you, right? I'm going to read this off.
Of course.
This is going to be fun. Engineer,
Okay,
professor,
okay,
lawyer,
follow.
privacy activist, CEO of Miners in Cybersecurity. Again, going back to the Teflon analogy, that's like you have multiple avatars you're doing at the same time, right? And along the way, obviously, I've talked to you before, you've had to pivot and change course. So talk a little bit about what helped you get through those major transitions in life. And again, the question behind the question being, what can others also learn from your journey?
Well, and you know what? Okay, so Ashwin's saying pivot, and for those that do not know me, because I feel like I'm everywhere all the time. So, IT background, information systems engineer turned attorney, turned special agent for the FBI, turned entrepreneur, turned corporate executive, turned entrepreneur, owning my own cybersecurity and privacy law practice, and now back in corporate. So I think there are pivots and changes and ebbs and flows to anybody's career. I can pinpoint exactly what made me transition from each of those. And it's resiliency, right?
Mm.
That's the one thing that I will keep going back to: stamina and resiliency. I joked with Leah earlier and said it's my bedtime. That's normally because I'm up at 5:30 and I'm working out, right? Stamina, preparing myself to continue on this path that I'm on. But I've always had this gut feeling that I'm not going to let any person stop me. The only thing that can stop me from achieving my goals is me. And you get distracted, you get discouraged, you get frustrated, you get angry. And this would probably be a different conversation had not the verdict came out the way I wanted it
Yeah.
to yesterday. But all that to be said, it's mental toughness and mental resiliency that has gotten me this far. That's the underlying basis of everything.
So we'll dig a little bit deeper into that. But switching gears, Leah, again, I'm going to read off because this is a mouthful again. Right, you're head of BizDev and cybersecurity programs at the CFF, which is the Cyber Future Foundation. You're a cybersecurity startup advisor, GTM strategy, MCLA founder, CRN Women in Channel 2020. And the last part, the best for last, right? Your MO is connecting people. You very rarely ever see that on anybody's profile, right? And I know your MO is connecting people because you connected me to Mary right here and lots of others. But again, going back to the same question as I had for Mary, which is this is a lot, right? And again, the question is really the same thing, which is what gave you the impetus to change? What gives you the courage to keep doing that? And again, this is a question to you, but I'm going to come back to Mary also with the same question is one of the Teflon things, you get hot on something really quickly and you start something new. I know when I start something, I suck at it. I guess most people do when you start something brand new. And if you're good at something and you start something brand new, that's like a dichotomy that you have to kind of struggle with in your own brain, right? So again, talk about your journey and then answer that last piece.
Well, I have to say I agree with Mary on, doing things for yourself, but also having a powerful network of people who I do. I feel like you've become my friends as well. And I've still not met you either of you in person yet.
Oh, you haven't met Mary too? Okay, I feel better
We
already.
met virtually in the pandemic when I came to Cyber Future Foundation, because she's been a pivotal person in working with us. And I'll just say, not pick on Mary, but say you are just such a strong personality. You're very inspiring. You're very candid, and you're supportive as a female and of other females, and that's so important. I think having a powerful network of people who are supporters, who can encourage, but call us on our BS as well and help push us, it is important. And I've been lucky to have that. And in terms of starting something new, I'd say, yes, it can be scary. I mean, when I started with a few friends of mine, Multi-Cloud Leadership Alliance, we've never started a business before. I think we've had, single LLCs ourselves to consult in Silicon Valley if we were laid off, because that was the thing, But I didn't know a thing about starting a company, made mistakes along the way, but then now learned from reaching out. I'd say ask for help when we need it. And that's the hardest thing. I hate asking for help. I don't want to burden others. I feel like it's a burden. But, there are people that help, and they'll give that advice from having done it before. And then you learn even more because you've tried to do it on your own, even if it's scary, and you realize the mistakes you make along the way. But I mean, I think you can't have fear as much, because it'll prevent you, hold you back. And I struggled with that early on. I had to overcome a lot of fear. And again, it's just the people around you that you surround yourself with. It just had finding those people.
Okay, so I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into that. I'll stick with you for a minute, Leah. There's the network that you talk about, right? And at least for me, I'll be honest, right? For the first 40 plus years of my life, the network was, you got a network. And again, it was me, right? It was for the purpose of building my network so somebody can help me find a job or get funding or whatever the case may be. And only over the course of the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years, it's not about me. I don't even matter in the picture, right? So the network is really about what are you doing to help somebody else? So to your point, how does somebody, let's say when I was in my early 40s, I won't reveal my age, if somebody were to come and tell, hey, Ashwin, stop doing the network that you're doing, instead start helping somebody, let the network work for somebody else. How does somebody go through that mental shift?
No, I mean, good point. I think I've always been a helper by nature. It comes from my mom. I'm not gonna lie. She's an Italian, 100% Italian person. She's always tried to help the world. So I've always been a helper, but I love doing it. And then I had to kind of realize and pivot more towards, okay, well, I need things too.
Yeah, you have the opposite problem.
Right? How do I ask? But I mean, thinking very basic, right? And probably why I love doing partnerships and connecting people is because, sure, maybe I'm reaching out to them because I need something, but I have something to give, or, the greater collective. So I think when you think about it, where give a little, take a little, but help each other out, and that's all that really matters in the end. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, karma, and what goes around comes around. So I mean, case in point, very lucky to get to be here with Mary. Thanks for the invite, Ashwin, and all the connectivity. But the more you put out there that I think is helpful and positive, the more it comes back too. And then it just makes the world go around.
Hey, Mary, so I'm going to ask you something that we've always been accustomed to think about as ROI, right? Whether it's business, whether it's engineering, whether it's law school. I mean, everything is okay. What's the return I'm getting on investment? And again, going back to what Leah just said, which is this karma bank isn't ROI. Yeah, you got to put stuff over there, and maybe something pops out tomorrow, maybe something pops out 10 years later, or maybe nothing pops out, right? So how do you, like, what advice do you have, going back to the Teflon analogy is, hey, you got to invest in a lot of things. and should not be looking for ROI immediately. And yet on the business side, on the personal side, I mean, so hey, you got to think about ROI. So how do you kind of balance those seemingly at odds?
And you know what, Ashwin, and that's funny because when Leah was talking, I was thinking passion and purpose. So, when you go through some of the things that I've gone through in my corporate career, right? There have been times in my career that I felt stuck from a my career perspective. I've felt like the politics of it all is driving me crazy. And my passion is information security and privacy. I absolutely love the field. But what happens when the politics of it all come into play, when you hate the environment that you're in, when you hate going into work every day, you have to find an outlet. So that's where the purpose comes in. So I've always felt that when I am down on myself, when things are just dark in my own personal career path and growth, focusing on others and helping them through it has always paid dividends for me. So you talk about the Karma Bank, you talk about, ROI and getting tangible. But I've always, when I've shifted the mental outside of myself, when I started thinking about the collective and how can I now stop somebody else or help somebody else or advise someone else that are going through the same thing I'm going through. If I take it off myself and put it to somebody else, I've always received tangible benefits out of doing that. Even, in the merging and the journey to merge those two, it's been unique, and I've really it goes deeper and deeper and deeper depending on where you are. So when I was going through a lot of the drama that I have gone through in my career, when I started Minorities in Cybersecurity was started out of feeling ultimately helpless in my own personal career, but investing in others is what is important in helping others through it, because I'm not alone. And when you turn around and you start to say, I'm struggling, and people look up to you, people are following you, people, and I never know, I'm always, floored when I find, people that talk about how much of an inspiration I am and everything like that. I'm just trying to be of service. So it's just more so trying to figure out taking it outside of myself and my own selfishness and putting it into others. I've always received benefits from that. Actually, almost instantaneous. It's never even been long term.
Yeah, and it's so important that what you mentioned over there, which is when you're not looking for something, it just shows up, and like you were saying, it just happens. I just want to call out one of our friends over here, George. By the way, George has an amazing data LinkedIn live show. If you haven't seen it, I urge my viewers and Mary and Leah to follow him. So yes, we all need to feel appreciated and that we make a difference. I think it's absolutely true, right? And again, going back to what Leah just said, just having that network. And the other thing I've realized, I want to kind of pick your brain on that also, is ROI in social media, right, is a plague, right? Whether it's followers, whether it's likes, whether it's comments, and yet I've personally seen this over and over again. There's this long silent majority, people who get influenced by what you say, but will never ever speak up. And then sometimes, in fact, I was commenting on somebody else's post the other day about saying, hey, what if my post doesn't get liked? Should I go back, retweet? I said, you know what, there's a silent majority. And sometimes I just suck. I just write something which is irrelevant and trite. So why should I go back and tweak it, right? So the question really is, as somebody is trying to figure out what the next thing to do is, how do they go? Again, you mentioned passion and purpose, right? And it took a long time for me to kind of get to that point. What tips do you have for somebody to start discovering their passion and purpose? Let's stick with you, Mary, for.
Well, okay, so the social media aspect and the passion and purpose aspect
Yes,
are two different things for me.
I know.
So
Yes.
the social media aspect, and I will tell everybody for the world to hear, Mary is suspect. Okay, when it comes to anything related to social media, I post. I'm not reading it. And their podcasts and everything. I'm sorry. There are things out there that I don't even go back and listen to that I've done. Um, I don't put things out there to seek validation or seek approval or seek likes. I put things out there for instance, for minorities in cybersecurity. I put jobs out there.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm trying to be of service to you by providing you with information on this is what we're doing. So I'm suspect with Twitter. Suspect. I mean, there's so many different platforms. There's somebody talking to me about what is it? What is the oh God? It's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. What is the one?
Clubhouse.
The Clubhouse.
Clubhouse.
Yes, that one.
Clubhouse.
Come in Clubhouse. Okay, so this is what I tell people. I'm a single mother of two. I have two teenagers. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not spending my extra time looking at and trying to be involved in Clubhouse. It's just not me. So from a social media aspect of it, I don't put things out there to seek approval or validation. I put things out there to be of service, and then I just leave it out there. It goes out there and it's just out there. As far as passion and purpose and how you marry those two, and you're right, Ashwin, it took me a while, but it was only through challenge that I actually was able to figure out what I was trying to do. When someone silences your voice, it becomes something that is inherent. And that's what was happening to me in some of the positions that I held. People were trying to silence my voice. And I feel like as a Black female in cybersecurity that's sitting at the executive level, and one of my mentors, and he doesn't know it, he probably knows it because I say it often to this day. One of my first boss in corporate America, he told me, Mary, it is your responsibility as a Black woman to be visible, because you need to be seen, because there are not enough people out there that look like you that are in this role. And so I took that to heart. And, years later, I'm still taking that to heart. And like I said, to marry that passion and purpose is important, because I really feel like there are too many people, women of color, men of color, women, period, that come up to me and say, Mary, you're such an inspiration. Can you mentor me? Can you mentor me? Can you mentor me? Minorities in Cybersecurity was founded because I had 30 some odd mentees, and so it becomes there is a need for visibility and expression of those things and those challenges. And I'm very candid and transparent about the challenges that I've faced, to the extent that I can be, and knowing that, darn it, you can get through this. It may take you a minute, but you can. So,
Leah, okay, so you can't claim the fifth on social. You live and breathe this, right? So again, same question to you, which is, we live in a digitally, I don't know, I mean, pick your favorite noise decibel level, right? And it's only getting worse. And yet somebody needs to figure out who they are, what their purpose is, what their passion is, and they have to test the waters, right? So how does somebody go about kind of not getting caught up in the social media tsunami, and yet at the same time realizing in this digital only universe they need to still figure out their own path forward? So what suggestions, again, your own journey, and any suggestions?
Yeah, well, I guess before I go there, one story first that leads to there. But on the validation point, I was at a period of time in my career. Well, yes, have been at some places that shall remain unnamed that were toxic. Okay. And so to George's point, the environment makes a big difference. And I think when one of those places and many of us were just trying to flee and get out, you can't rush that. You don't know the timelines. You just have to try. But in the meantime, what are you going to do to be okay? And that's actually when it was a period when a couple of us started Multi-Cloud Leadership Alliance. So that was the outlet, right? And then putting the focus on, okay, where to go next and what that pivotal change was. And part of it too for me was moving from California to Texas and getting back into cybersecurity because I was out for a year. But, it was interesting because as I was interviewing, I got a lot of no's, and I started questioning myself, thinking, am I wrong on some of these things? And I thought, okay, not sure, but if someone tells me no, when I think I can do it, then watch out, I'm going to go prove them wrong. And I think Mary can relate. So I sure enough, well, I'll say thank you to these companies too, and these names, because I had met with Critical Start, had great conversations with them. They knew what I was trying to do. And they said, hey, if you want to talk about, some of your thoughts in the areas of, cloud security and services, why don't you go reach out to Steve Williams, one of the CISOs at NTT here in Texas.
Oh, I know Steve. He's been on the TechCast before. Yes.
And I had seen also a chat of his, he was spoke at a conference. So pinged him, didn't really know him, actually never met him. On LinkedIn, he responded back. I mentioned the Critical Start team, and he agreed to meet with me. So I had to fly out here anyways for something because it was before I moved. And I went to the offices in Plano and met with him for the first time and said, I just would love feedback from you. You work at a services company and security. Let me show you what I think. And we went through it, and he gave validation and said, no, it's spot on. I needed that at the time.
Yeah.
And so that was feedback I needed that pushed me even further to get me to where I'm at. Now back to social media. I don't know that I do it for validation. What I've realized though is when I post it, back to being passionate, candid, and authentic, and something I really believe in. And sometimes y'all sit there and second guess and think, oh, what could be the reaction? You almost can't care. You have to look at what is the why. Let's go back to the why. What are you trying to achieve? What do you want to communicate and message out there? Because back to the why. So the more authentic you can be with the passion behind it and the message that you're trying to drive for the ultimate why and outcome, I think is where you start. And I've realized the more authentic I am in my post and where it comes from passion, you're going to get some of those that will comment and have disagreements, but you know what? Oh, well, because over time, when you start to see not just from one post, you have to look at it, longer term, the interactions and discussion, and the more people that come on board that, we all have like-minded folks around us. I mean, the three of us here. So you start to form that community and build that. That's where the power is, regardless of if your post does well or not.
Yeah, and
wait a minute, can I say something here? Because I want to jump in there, because as the poster, you control what is posted. So when I've had individuals that are not aligned with what I'm trying to put out there, it's just a simple delete. And I just delete and block. That's the beautiful thing. And so you will always experience negative, well, not always. There are always going to be those folks out there that have a problem with, what you're trying to get accomplished. But again, it's just those three little dots and delete. And it silences the voice, and you can actually control whether or not you allow people to comment, who you allow to comment to your thing. So if you built your community up and your first connections are those that are really, aligned with your true beliefs, you could just only let your first connections comment to your post. There are ways, that's called technology. There are ways to silence folks that are not thinking in a positive way. So
that's a great segue, Mary, to my next thing, which is probably maybe the last question, depending on how long you guys take to answer. But this is one which is, again, going back to Teflon, which is the ability for the pan to cool down really quickly. In fact, this was the whole genesis of Teflon Tales. I'll tell you that story sometime later. But the point being, given you have so many avatars, given you're trying so many different things all at the same time, given that you're trying to give back every single day, how do you take care of cooling down? How do you take care of switching off? And you mentioned something, Mary, that's very relevant to this, which is like turning off the noise. What other tips do you have in this noisy world that we live in for people to continue to make progress without getting distracted or getting pulled into things that they don't want to get pulled into?
Learn to say no. I have in the last year, well, no, in the last actually 3 to 6 months, have learned that there are only so many things that I can do. There are things that I can commit to. I volunteer the bulk of my time in my nonprofit. Everything else comes secondary to what I do at Minorities in Cybersecurity. In regards to my volunteer time, in regards to my work time, my employer gets that time. And it's understanding that you don't have to do everything, and it's okay. It is really okay that you can't do everything, and you have to turn off that noise. There's absolutely no way that I can survive on a day-to-day perspective without turning, just unplugging. Just I can't anymore, and spending that time with myself. Like I said, I work out. The very first thing I do in the morning when I'm not sore like I am today, but is work out. And I dedicate that to my health, but it also gets me in the proper mental state to deal with everything else that I'm doing throughout the day. So you have to carve out that time for yourself.
Leah, take us home. Strategies for people to stay balanced, mentally detached, and be Teflon-like.
Yeah, and I'm still learning to say no, but I think actually being at a nonprofit has helped me a little bit in the sense that, there are so many initiatives we can drive and so many people come to us when you're in a nonprofit, but you can't save the world all at once. So pick one, right? And I did get one that I even told our founder, I said, we have 5, but there's one I am passionate about, like from an empathetic, just personal standpoint too. So I'm going to drive that one this year, and then we'll look at the others. And he agreed and said, and he's a good person that helps balance too, and everyone else. But similar to Mary's point, I think, I let it go for a little bit during the pandemic of not working out all the time. I got back into it, trying to run outside every day I can when it's not, 100 degrees here. And then, yes, I broke down and got a Peloton, but that thing reminds me every day I need to get on it. So that time break, and it's just me, helps mentally, physically. Yes, clearing my head through exercise, similar. You can't get that back, but it's needed. And you just got to do it. You have to build it in your schedule. And you have to, yes, say no, even though I need to practice that a lot more, but, and realize that there's certain things in life that are more important that you need to make room for. Family, first and foremost.
Well, when you feel like you're running a marathon every day, you may want to, slow down.
Yeah.
No, fine. Great thoughts. And again, given the backdrop of that question, I really appreciate you making the time to show up here. I know it's late. I know you reminded me, Mary, a few times that you were up at 5 a.m. So.
It's my bedtime. What's wrong with you, Ashwin?
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to hear the end of this. I know.
It's all
again,
good.
really appreciate your time for actually showing up here, because I know this is again taking time coming up here and sharing a story. And again, with the whole purpose behind this is to help others also learn some of the Teflon properties in their life and be more purposeful and helpful to others community. So again, thanks for your time, Leah. Thanks for your time, Mary.
Oh, no, thank you. Resiliency, folks. Just think about it.
Yes, thank you. And, to good friends like Ashwin and Mary.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.